Hello guys, so in this video I'm going to be explaining what state management is in React application. So for a couple of weeks now we've been hearing a lot about states and props, and then we already know that state is any data that is going to be changing in our application. So and at some point we are going to be needing to share this state with other components through props. So we've learned about like how we share props. So we are going to go into types of states as well. Then we are going to see some visuals and how we can manage and share our state. So state management in React application is a way to enable an easy communication and sharing of data across components. So state management is just basically like how do we manage states across components in our React application. And as you can see from this diagram over here, you can see that we have some blocks. So this block represents components. So the first one is the parent component, and then it has two children, and then the two children has four children, and then it goes on like that. So these are like generations. Yeah. So and as you can see, we have multiple components here, and you can see the way they are being now. You can see from the original parents, there's a link to the children, which is a prop. So this link are states. So we are passing a state as a prop to the children, and then the children pass it down to their own children. And then you can see that from the grandchildren of these parents, which are this block, there's no relationship between them. The only relationship or where they are being linked is from the parents. So the parent shares common state to their parent, to the parent of the grandchildren, and then they can get it from their own parent. So this is basically how it looks like. And one of the issues we can easily cite here is that if we need a prop here, let's say we need a state from the parent year in the last generation, we'll notice like the children, the previous parent needs to be aware of the state. So what this means is for us to have the state here or pass down the prop here, we need to pass it through their parents and then their grandparents, even though the parent and grandparents are not going to be using it. So this can be improved in such a way whereby we can make a global state management in which we can share props without passing it through other component that doesn't need it at all. So a logical example is, let's say for instance, we are at an occasion and then we are sitting in rows. So someone is sitting at my left, someone is sitting at my right. So if they want to pass food from this side to people here, even though I'm not going to be eating the food, I'll still need to carry the food and give it to the person in my left. So it is actually bothering me. And just imagine if you are very long, that means like we would have to be taking the food from one person to another, from one person to another, even though they don't need it. And if the person that they want to give the food doesn't like it, we have to collect it again and trace it back the way we collected it. So this is one way of sharing state. So now let's look at type of state. So firstly, we have the local state. We also have the global state, the server state, and the URL state, which we are going to be discussing in details. So for the local state, it is the easiest and the most common form. Like it is one that you can easily find in any React application, and we can easily create this using useState or use dispatch hook. So we already know what hooks are. So hooks are like functions from React that we can use in a functional component, because functional component is dump, it doesn't manage its own states by default. So we need this hook to make it stateful. So we need sharing our local state between multiple components can lead to prop drilling, which one of the things I've already explained. Like prop drilling is like you have to be passing it to components that doesn't even need it, down to the component that actually needs it. So it is an act of passing props across multiple components that don't really need them. So this is the illustration. So the state is actually in the parent component, and then we need to pass it down to other components, down to where we actually need it. So assuming we have up to like 10 components before we get to where that component is, depending on the layout of our React application, we need to be passing it down. So you can see the way it is now. So this component doesn't need it, but we need to pass it to it, because that is how we can get to this component. So it takes a lot of stress, and it is not really scalable, because as your component grows, you need to be refactoring, adding, removing, changing the structure to how is going to make it suitable to reach the destination. So the next one is the global state. So the global state is a state management that allows us to have a single source of truth called a provider for our data, and each component can access and modify the state without using prop chain. So the local state is basically like a state of a particular component that you want to share with others, while the global state is a form of state management that allows us to have like a provider where any component can just go there and then consume it. So what this means in illustration is basically instead of passing the food from one person to another before it gets to the original or the component that needs it, or to the person that needs it, what we do instead is what we known as serve yourself. So the serve yourself table is like the provider, and we as a consumer, people that want to eat, we can just stand up, go there and serve. So the person sitting beside me won't have to know what I'm eating, how many meat is in my food, and then even the process of passing it, things might break, it might something might go wrong while they are passing it. Someone can sneeze into it, so we don't want that kind of thing. So I can just easily go to the serve yourself table, which is also refers to as the provider, and then each of the components can easily just consume it without having any relationship with all these folks here. So that's basically what global state is. So now, to achieve this global state, because most of the time the feature is inbuilt, and sometimes we might need more, or it might require the use of library to achieve this. So the global state can be managed using the following. So the number one is context API. So context API is a feature built in React that allows us to, create a provider, a global state that any components can easily just access. And it is one of the most popular way of state management. It doesn't require any additional library to use, and it is suitable for any kind of project you want to build. And then we also have Redux. So if you want to build like a very complex, robust application and state management, we go for Redux. So they both achieve the same thing for state management, but the way they do things is quite different, which we are going to be looking into later on. So we also have Recoil. So we have Recoil, we have Zostand. So each of them just achieve global state management, but they have different approaches to this. But for this, for this fellowship, we are going to be taking a look at context API and Redux. So we have other, state management libraries or techniques you can check out. We already have access to this Notion page, so you can check out all the top 6 React state management. So moving on, we have the state server state. So the server state addresses situations like what should happen when data is being fetched, display loader. I've already shown you this when we are creating our React application. So for instance, now when I refresh, you can see the loading state. So these are server states. So basically, you are using the loading state of the server to inform the user that a data is being fetched. So when you want to get something from the server, from the backend, you want to inform the front end that this thing is being loaded. And if the data doesn't uh, maybe the data is empty, that is when we display nothing yet, that their data is going to appear here once they are ready. And when there's an error handling, I already shown you about error handling. For instance, now if I try to add something, you can see I'm also informing the user that an error has occurred. So that's part of error handling, and this is has to do with server state. So should the component fetch data from the server every time the user visits the page, even when the data has not changed? So we also want to check, maybe for instance now, the user is trying to fetch the data, but the data has not actually changed. We can just do a check. If it does not change, we are not going to make a new refresh. So especially with our use effects, and use state and use effect needed for fetching this data. So we can also check if it requires us to keep the server state in use state or use effect. So depending on the scenario or depending on the feature you are building, you want to keep in check whether you want to also handle server state. Maybe it's loading, error occurred, you want to show the data, you want to show the empty state. Think default, think and error state, and then think when the data has been fetched. So we also have data fetching libraries for server states. So basically, data fetching libraries provide hooks that can be used to keep track of the state of the server request and also help to catch data for faster response on the second request. So they are dedicated libraries for server states, and they give us access to the loading states. If there's an error, they are going to expose it to us, so we don't actually have to manually undo the loading states, the error states, and when the data is being fetched, just like with the way we do with Ashios and we do with Fetch API. So, but with SWR and React Query, they give us the loading states. If there's an error, they provide hooks that exposes all the states. When you are fetching data from the server, they expose it to us. So these are the two. So you should just be aware that these things exist, and then you can learn it on your own as well. And this is how you can, undo server state. So we also have the URL state. So React is a single page application, and then we make use of React Router DOM to undo navigations in React. So URL states such as params and redirects are managed by routing libraries such as React Router, and below are some of the URLs state management hooks. So basically what this allows us to do is, like, we want to know the state of our URL, whether they have a params. We want to make use of the locations such as maybe what was the previous page that the user used. Maybe we want to redirect the user to another page without reloading the page automatically, without them clicking a button. So we can make use of these hooks such as use params to get the params from the URL. We can also make use of the use location to know the previous location the user is coming from, or to get the current location they are in. And then we also have the use navigate, which is used to automatically redirect user in a function. So for instance, maybe you want to redirect the user to a particular dashboard, maybe like client dashboard. You have two dashboard, client dashboard and admin dashboard. So you want to redirect, they don't have to click a button when they log in. So like when they log in, and you confirm that their login details are correct. So now if you want to decide where you want to redirect them to, they don't have to click a button for this. So you can do that programmatically by using the use navigate. You check the user type, and then you use navigate to this page or that page. So that's basically what state management is all about. So it's basically how we manage states in our React application. And then we have different type of states. We have the local states, which is managed by an individual component and it can be shared with other components. We also have the global state, which is like a provider, like serve yourself. Any component can go to the provider and have access to the state without any other component knowing what what state they need. So this avoids or prevents props drilling, like passing props from one component to another until you get to where it is needed. We also have the server state. The server states are the states of fetching data, communicating to the backend, whether it is still in progress or the data has arrived or an error has occurred. And we have dedicated libraries for this, such as SWR or React Query. And lastly, we have the URL state. The URL state is how we know if there is a param in its URL, and we make use of React Router hooks such as use params for this. We have the use location, which is actually to know the current location or to know the previous location where the user came from. And also we can make use of use navigate to automatically or programmatically redirect user in our React application. So in the next video, I'm going to be showing you what props drilling is, using the code, and also we progress to showing you local states, global states, and then we'll talk about server state and then URL state.